Hi. Let me just start by telling you guys a story. There were two girls that traveled to Paris, and they were alone, and they met this guy, and they shared a cab with him. And he found out where they lived, and he told his Albanian human trafficking member people to go get them. And then this girl has time to call her father, and her father gets to speak briefly to one of the kidnappers. And he says, "I don't know who you are, but if you don't let my daughter go, I will find you and I will kill you." The kidnapper wishes him good luck, and the special agent begins to, he searches for his daughter, he travels to Paris. So, does this plot sound familiar to any of you?
Taken.
It is Taken, you're right. Taken, starring Liam Neeson. So a lot of you probably think that it's just a movie to entertain, right? When in actuality, what happens to the girl is very real. It's a great movie, don't get me wrong, but it's not really a father, there's not many fathers fighting and killing people to go save their daughter who was taken and only has 92 hours before they get lost forever. But what happens to the girls is actually very real. Today I want to awaken you to the true horrors that exist in the world of sex trafficking. Also Taken. Good movie. So sex trafficking, and I'm only going to talk about sex trafficking in the United States. It happens all over the world, but I'm just going to talk about the United States because it's more familiar to you guys. Let me just start by saying that I was part of a club called Revolution Club. At the top, we always turned the EV and OL, we always made it like more noticeable for love. These are some posters we kind of used. And what we did was we went around and we would host concerts, free for us. We'd get bands to come in, and we would have concerts, and there would be people who would pay admission to come in, and all of the proceeds and donations would go to organizations that help stop sex trafficking. Let's see. Oh yeah, so we raised money, and we would go to malls, and we would do all these big events, and so it was really cool. We raised hundreds and hundreds, and I didn't know the actual outcome, but it was a lot. And I was part of it for 2 years, so I have some knowledge on it. Let's see. So how do you think sex trafficking relates to you? Just because it's not directly in front of your face does not mean it's not around. Sex trafficking can happen at truck stops, ones you may just be passing, an apartment building, or even a shady massage place. It happens everywhere, and we don't even notice it. So today I will tell you who it happens to, how and why it happens, and last, how you can stop it. Some of the main places that sex trafficking does happen is in California, San Diego, and Los Angeles. So it's very, very close to us. Let's see. This gets to really young children. 98% of the captured victims are girls and women. Girls age from about 12 to 14 when they're taken, and boys are about 11 to 13. It does happen to boys, but it's more rare. Let's see. Yeah, so in California, there are 80% that occur just in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and San Diego. It's really close. They pick these people because they are vulnerable and weak. There's 14,500 to 17,500 people who become victims of sex trafficking a year. Just a year, almost 20,000, and I think it's raising. So Vanessa Yee explains in her essay, Sex Trafficking in the United States, most of these victims are also from low socioeconomic status, but contrary to stereotypical beliefs, not all the victims live in poverty. Some are from upper and middle class families because, interesting enough, sex trafficking crosses all socioeconomic levels and also ethnic backgrounds. So 83% of the cases found in the United States are American citizens. They do bring over foreigners, but it does happen with a lot of Americans. So that's the number, just more information. 50% of them are children. It's a lot of them. Most children, actually, I think that raised, most children are trafficked into sex, or sex trafficked. Second, there's these people called pimps that I don't know, it's a weird name, but they call them pimps, and what they do is they lure in these girls, really young girls that have been abused their life or have a rough time or need a job because their family's making them get one. These pimps give them promises and false hope, and they lie to them, and then once they're in, they have them, and they can't leave. They can't leave because, let's see, oh yeah. And this is one living condition this is a nice living condition. This isn't even the worst. Most of the girls are chained down, not allowed to get up or anything. There's one story, oh yeah, they become very, very reliant on their pimp. They become really reliant on them because they are supplying them with food. They're supplying them with the home. So it's really hard for them to leave. Melissa Woodward was one of them. She was a victim. And she lived to tell her story. And she was, her uncle sold her into slavery at age 12. And she was beaten and burned nightly by people. Like, I won't go into the details because it's horrific. But just one of her stories, her story got out. She said she got 5 to 30 customers a night at age 12 or 14. And she couldn't, no matter what she did, she couldn't stop anything from happening. She was chained to a twin bed with 14 other girls, and she maybe got to use the bathroom once a day. She barely got food, barely got water, and she was surviving on the little hope she had left. Eventually, at 14, her pimp told her she was too torn up and she wasn't good enough. So he sent her out on the streets with an addiction problem, and at 14, and she had nowhere to go. But she lived to tell her story, and she started her own organization for the sake of one, and it helps against that. So it's a $7 billion business, and most of the girls don't even see the money. They're just there, they're taken. And there are many ways. There are many ways that you can help. Just by visiting a website, donating for the sake of one is the website I was talking about. They explain on the website, a Christ-centered nonprofit organization whose mission is to prevent, rescue, and heal children involved in domestic child sex trafficking. And it does help. It does save a lot of lives. And this is what it is, and you guys can help. So today I talked to you about who it happens to, how and why it happens, and last, how you can stop sex trafficking. It's the 3rd largest criminal activity in the world. And it's not just going to disappear in one night, but just your awareness of it and the possibilities of what you can do can help. So if you visit one of these websites, or you just go around and be a part of an awareness project, you can help. You can make a difference and you can save a life by giving the littlest amount. Thank you.
Oscar, why don't you let us know what you thought?
Right from the beginning, right from the get-go, I thought she started out really good. The attention getter was very effective for me. As soon as she started describing the scene, I immediately was able to relate to it. So and the way to start off the speech I thought was very effective in order to relate that to her audience. She was very clear on what she was going to be talking about. She made it very clear at the end of her introduction what she was going to be talking about throughout the speech. And she did that with good points, good citations, and good evidence. Her visuals were good. I think one of the charts might have been very similar to the other one. Kind of shared the same information, just a little bit different. But other than that, it was well delivered, good eye contact with the audience, good delivery, good command presence, and overall good speech.
All right. Well, I thought that the telling the story was pretty effective at getting people in, and of course you've got the Liam Neeson quote there that you get to use that sucks everybody in also. You made a pretty good transition to the topic. I did think it was a little strange that it took you 3 minutes though to get to the preview of what the supporting point was going to be. So if we spent the first 3 minutes hearing the attention device, hearing the background information about the group that you were involved in, and then we get to the preview of what the supporting material is going to be, then it seems like we're kind of burying the lead. This is the stuff that's the most important in the speech, and it needs to come up a little bit quicker. You did set up that structure, and I thought that part was good, but during the body of the speech, I didn't think that you labeled those supporting points as clearly as you could. You got often involved in the information that you were presenting without always thinking about the organization. That doesn't mean that you abandoned the organization, but I didn't think that you were highlighting it for the audience in a way that would help them remember it as clearly. I thought that there was good information. I'll tell you what, the stories make a little, let me rephrase that. The issue and the problem makes a little bit more sense when you provide the illustration and the story. Suddenly it is a lot more coherent, because before that it just seems a little strange. We've got some abstract numbers about what's happening. We've got a vague description of what the whole industry all involves. And then when you get to the story about the one woman who started the organization, and we hear her story, it suddenly is a lot clearer. I think I said this to everybody when we were talking about supporting material. One of the better ways of keeping things clear is to start with the narrative and then maybe follow that up with the statistics and the facts and that sort of thing. So I think that maybe if you had done that, it would have been a little bit clearer. So start with that story of the woman and tell us what happened to her so that we can see, okay, so this is kind of how it happens, this is what's going on, and then hit us with those statistics and then hit us with those facts, as opposed to going the other direction where we get all these facts and things that are being presented to us. I'm going, okay, well, that's a lot of numbers, but what does that all mean? What is it we're talking about here? And then you're kind of going backwards and telling us the story. I think it works better going the other direction. I think it's easier to make sense of something like that. There's an old adage in education: you start with the familiar and then you move to the things that are less familiar. And that's, I think, the stories and the personal experiences will be a lot more familiar to people. It's easier for them to relate to than all the statistical stuff is going to be. So I think that would help. The visuals are fine for the most part. I didn't think you needed the title card. I think the timing thing on the slide at the beginning for your attention device would have been great if you could have, as you're telling us, this is from the movie Taken, and then you put up the slides of the image there. That would be a little bit more dramatic. As it is, it feels a little anticlimactic when it comes up. I understand what Oscar's talking about when he mentions that a couple of the slides seem very familiar, because you've got you've got two statistical comparisons, maybe separating them a little bit more. That might be another one of those things where if the sequence of the story that you're telling is put together the right way, that one set of statistics would make a lot more sense. You could introduce that after the story, and then you go back to your story and talk about something else in the story, and then the second set of statistics applies to that part of the story. That, I think, would be helpful. That might maybe solve that problem of it seeming redundant. But I thought you presented them pretty well, like I said, with the one little minor exception, which was not a big deal. That's mostly an attention issue anyway. You did a good job talking to the audience, and you did a very nice job citing the sources during the presentation, so I thought that went well also. Okay, thank you. When are we scheduled for our next test? Does anybody have the schedule? Because it seems like it should be right after.
It's November 13th.
That late, huh?
Exam number 2 after the presentation.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're on top of things. What we're going to do, we have Monday is supposed to be our last day of speeches. We'll see how it goes. I don't know, some of these people, maybe they're not coming back. We'll put everybody that we need to hear from. I see most of these folks in class today. Maybe one or two people are missing, but they were here on this last Monday. So hopefully we'll have everybody who's scheduled on Monday ready to go. We'll fill that day. If we run over, we may have to hear a couple of speeches. There'll be one last chance to do make goods. next week on Wednesday. But next week on Wednesday, we are gonna start the next assignment too. So I just want you to know where we're headed. All right, well, here's 45 minutes that is stolen from you that hopefully we'll get back someplace. Enjoy your breakfast.